Right, Spencer Shuffield. I think you're known as Ron Shuffield's son, but I think some of the younger crew around here, they know you as Spencer Shuffield, the hammer that also finished second in the Wombass US Open here last year to Josh Bertrand. So thanks for hanging out, dude.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, you're an Arkansas dude, and like right off the giddy, dude, I just want to say, like, so like Arkansas anglers are stereotypically known as like shallow flippers, slow talking, slow learning on the electronic side. And like, dude, that ain't you, like, at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of your wins and top 2s and 3s and top finishes are all like staring down at a screen. And like, that's almost like Western like. And so it's no surprise to see you here.
Well, I did the co-angler deal for 6 years. I took a bunch of extra classes in high school. So,
extra classes.
Yeah, like college classes.
Yeah.
When we went on Christmas break, my graduating class went on Christmas break, I was done. And we had planned it that way so I could start as a co-angler in 2007.
Okay.
And so my first co-angler event was on the FLW tour at Lake Okeechobee.
While you were still in high school?
I'd gotten out early. So like when we went on Christmas break, I was done. So,
yeah.
You know, they had to go back after 2 weeks. I didn't. I was done. I'd had enough credits that I could graduate. And like I said, we planned it like that so I could start fishing in 2007. And man, I learned so much just fishing as a co-angler behind a lot of these guys, but it was the Western guys like Gabe Boulevard, Justin Kerr. Literally, my first co-angler event I won was on Telecom Loudon, and Justin Kerr was my boater.
Wow.
And it was just watching these guys like those, growing up with a dad that did it for a living. I mean, yeah, my dad was an excellent fisherman. He won 7 tournaments with BASS, but he, dude, it was a trout, jig and a spinnerbait. I mean,
Arkansas.
That's all he threw.
Yeah.
You know, and I can remember, like, we had great fisheries there around the house back then. Like the Grays, like I grew up on there in Bismarck, Arkansas. It was full of hydrilla and
beautiful lake.
It was just it was a lake just full of quality fish. But man, I can remember we'd go down there in the wintertime. We'd get 4 to 6 bites a day. And I mean, they would weigh over 20 pounds. But I remember fishing all day. And like, you know, you're growing up as a kid getting 1 bite a day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was hard. I mean, you really had to have a passion for it. And thankfully, when I was young, my dad took me to a couple places out in West Arkansas, like Derrick, Skillum, DeQueen, a couple lakes out there. And he roomed with a guy named Fred Bland, which we call Taco, which was a guy that basically, he basically invented the shaky head.
Really? And no one knows about that. Like, I don't know. Did you ever hear? No.
Dude, this was back in the early 90s.
Wow.
Like 93, 94. Wow. And he lived on Logan Martin in Alabama. And so we went out there several times in the summer on my summer break, and we would throw a shaky head, and you caught like 200 a day.
Yeah.
And so I got a taste of what it was like to really catch
bites.
Wow.
And so that really kept my interest. And of course, my dad started letting me fish tournaments with me when I was 4. We'd fish in night tournaments, and then it went to weekend tournaments that paid a little better. And, you know, I got obsessed with catching on a spinning rod because we'd make those trips and catch so many fish.
Yeah.
And I just wanted more of that. And then when I got, you know, my first boat when I was 17, it was a 18-foot Sprint with a Mercury 150 XR6 on it. I started, you know, throwing spinning rods a lot because the only spinning rod stuff I'd had with my dad besides the shaky head was like throwing a shad rack.
Right.
Because he did do that.
Yep.
And so I started getting spinning rod stuff and using it there around the house and catching fish. And then I got to fish with some of you Western guys as a co-angler, and dude, I just fell in love with it.
So yeah, you would clean up. I mean, if you a guy, I remember those days. Like I don't care. I mean, if it was the National Guard or I did a little FLW Tour stuff and champion stuff like that. Like the guy who you'd fear, like in the back of the boat, was that finesse spinning rod guy. And it seems like through the 2000s, like the only guys who were doing that really were like the Western guys. Like there weren't a lot of guys back east that a lot of them are just Carolina rig or drag a fluke or something like that. But I think now in this day and age, everyone has started, you know, especially with forward facing sonar, but everyone's understanding you do get more bites with the spinning rods.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, and I think, you know, especially, I don't know, I guess it's because the stuff you can throw on a spinning rod is such a natural presentation and more realistic looking. And fish are getting so much more pressure nowadays too. But even back then, I mean, heck, 25 years ago, when we'd go to them lakes out west, you couldn't catch 200 a day throwing a full-size jig or a 10-inch wire.
Not at
You
all.
might catch 30.
No,
You know,
not at all.
it just goes to show, you know, I mean, realistic, natural stuff will always get more bites.
That's cool that your dad was, you know, like he was open to the spinning rod thing.
Yeah.
And on this show, like we always, you know, I love talking with the guests. And you have kids. Do you have kids?
Yes, sir. Three of them.
How old?
2 8s and 11-year-old.
2, 8, 11. Okay.
Yep.
So how old is he?
8 and 11.
Oh, 8, 8. Okay.
I got a little
2
girl
8s.
that's 8, a little boy that's
2
about
8s
to be
and
9.
11. Heck yeah. So on this show, I love to ask our guys, you know, in this current climate of professional bass fishing, with all with everything going on, right? Sponsor money, economics, gas prices. Josh was saying $6 a gallon by his house over there. You know, your 11-year-old comes to you and says, "Hey, Dad, you know, I want to become a professional bass fisherman." I mean, what do you say? I mean, do you is that something, you know? What, like your dad? Yeah, like your dad, Ron. You know, Ron. I'm sure he encouraged you because let's face it, that climate was a little bit better than it is right now. But yeah, I mean, would you support it?
Man, you know, it's different. Like now looking back at it, I mean, it was just my dad. Literally, I'll go ahead and tell a story. So my dad started in '88.
'88, yeah,
and won his. I don't know. I think maybe he didn't do good his first year. He'd gotten laid off. He worked for Reynolds back home. Got laid off and started fishing professionally.
Wow.
And it was either his next to last tournament he was going to be able to fish, but it was Okeechobee, and he won. Only check he's ever cashed at Okeechobee. And it was his very first win in '88. And anyways, 9.5 months later, here I am.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, I don't know. It was one of them deals like my dad won a tournament and my mom's pregnant with me. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, dude, awesome. It was like I was destined for it, you know. And of course, I got a brother that's 10 years older than me and a sister that's 14 years older than me.
Okay.
So I was an accident.
Wow.
Same.
But, you're born in '89.
I was born in '89.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So it was one of them deals like growing up, man, I was obsessed with it. I can remember just like when I was 1.5 years, 2 years old, as soon as my dad walked through the door, I knew he'd been fishing. I wanted to smell his hands.
Wow.
You know, I could just tell if
so you were fascinated by it.
I'm obsessed with it still to this day. Like when we went to the Classic, Bassmaster Classic, or any boat show, I always got in the boat and opened the live wells. Like I was obsessed with the live wells.
Oh yeah, just watching it, looking.
And so I've always been obsessed with it, and I couldn't imagine where I would be today if it wasn't for bass fishing.
Yeah.
Or fishing in general, but especially bass fishing. And so, I want that for my little boy, and he's got just the natural ability. Like, I don't work with him like I should. I don't take him like I should. I'm gone a lot, and I feel really guilty for that because he's so good when we do go. He's just, and he's obsessed with him like I was. Not to the point that I was, but enough, you know, and he really enjoys it. And I feel like being obsessed fishing like the way I was, it kept me out of a lot of places that I could have went.
Oh, yeah.
There was friends, and they're still good friends, but I had friends back when I was younger, you know, 16, 17, 18 years old, especially if you graduated high school, like, man, let's go do this tonight or do that. I'm like, nah, dude, I got to get up in the morning to fish a tournament. Yeah. You know, so I couldn't stay out all night. And it just kept me out of a lot of places I didn't need to be. And so I want that for him. Yeah. But where's this world going to be in 15 years?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That is a question right there.
And it's like I'm in a corner because I absolutely love professional bass fishing. Mm-hmm. And it's not, it is the competing, but it's the fish in general. I love going out and figuring them out. Yeah. Figuring them out. I love fishing against guys like you or anybody that I fish against and competing against you guys, but it's still at the end of the day, it's the fish and figuring them out. Yep. And I feel like we're really competing against them. Yep. And so, you know, it's just one of them things, like I don't have any other options. Mm-hmm. And it would be nice that depending on what goes down the next 5 years or if I ever hit a bad roll and just had a bad 2 seasons or something, what would I do? I don't have anything else to do, man. I'd be filling out an application to work at Walmart.
Right.
I have no degree.
So when you're talking about your kid though, like, would you rather them maybe have a plan B and like do something early in their life that if they still want to chase the tournament thing, they can down the road, or like, how do you guide them?
That's the deal. Like, had I had a plan B, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's not a plan B for me.
No.
Fishing is A through Z.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I am forced to have to make it. My
Yeah.
kids depend on it.
Yeah.
My wife depends
And you
on it.
hear that from a lot of anglers, right? Like Josh
Yeah.
said the same thing. He said, I don't have a plan B. Like, this is all I got. I got to
Yeah.
make it work. So is that why you are so successful, you think?
I think that a lot of the guys that are really successful, that's their only plan.
Yeah.
I
Right.
feel like your back is so tight against the wall that you can't fail.
Yeah.
And if you have a plan B, it gets in your head. And it's like, well, if I don't do good this year, if I don't catch them this tournament, then I can always go back home and do this. Or I got a business paying my bills anyway. I don't have anything else paying my bills but bass. I mean, that's
Right.
it. And so it's one of them deals like, I feel like I want my son to fish because I know it would be good for him. I love his sport. There's a lot of good people involved in it.
Yep.
But if you give him a plan B, then plan B is always going to be plan A option.
It's
I feel like.
it's always a weird thing because so like who else other than like Scott Martin, is following in their father's footsteps? Because it's a weird thing because if Ron or Roland really pushed it, said, hey, you have to be a professional bass fisher, like typical dad, like, you don't want to go too far, then they'll shy away from it. What other pros are, there's Roland, Ron, and then
Elton Jr.
Okay, so Junior, who else? We know of anyone else?
No, you had Dion.
Hibden, yep,
Hibden.
Hibdens,
Yep.
So that's a weird kind of thing. Like, and not all of them, sure, not all of them. Look how many anglers there are who have kids, the lanes or whatever, I'm pretty sure, most of them aren't, going up and wanting to smell dad's hands after he's fishing, so you're either born with it or you're not. Like, honestly, you're either born with it or you're not, but that's always a fine line. I hear, we don't have kids, but I hear from touring anglers like, hey, I don't want to push them too much because they'll get turned off by it. So, interesting.
What are your thoughts? So this is all you have, and you went through some hiccups this year. Like when you go through hiccups like that and you don't have a plan B, like what goes through your head, or like with the rumors swirling around right now, if something were to happen to tournament fishing, like, what would you do? Have you even thought of that?
As far as the hiccup stuff, it's just more motivation for me.
Yeah.
Right.
It drives me even harder.
Yeah.
It puts you to another level that you didn't maybe know even existed.
Yep.
I give it 110 every time I'm on the water.
Yeah.
I always do. But now, after stuff like that happened to me this year, I feel like now it's at 150.
Yeah.
And you just want to even do well even more than you did before, which, I didn't even know that was possible. So
Yeah.
obviously, let's be honest. We all want to win every tournament.
Yep.
But, it's, I don't know. Maybe God, I love to catch crappie. I do stay busy with that. When I am home, I've got people always, man, when can I book a coffee trip with me or with you and stuff like that. And I love catching crappie too, but it would have to be something in the fishing industry, but I couldn't be a part of the fishing industry marketing as far as just going to these places and selling product. Like, you have to do that as an angler, but I still have to be involved in actually catching the bass.
Yeah.
I've got to be involved in that somehow. Man, I would be a total nutcase if I didn't have this. I'm serious. Those 4 years I had to sit out was the most miserable 4 years of my life.
Why did you have to sit out for 4 years? Because we all knew you when you hit the FLW tour. Everyone's seen the Shuffield name, and was like, oh my gosh, that's Ron's son, and he catches them. Then you disappeared for a while. And why was that?
Man, it was one of them deals where I'd gotten married in 2013. And, my ex-wife now, her mom and dad had went through a divorce, and it just absolutely devastated her. She ended up getting on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a divorce. Oof. In the process, she had maxed out almost $90,000 credit card debt on me.
Goodness.
Had to file a bankruptcy. Dude, I drove around a Toyota Tundra for 2 years. They were trying to repo it.
Wow.
Drove 65,000 miles without changing oil.
65, there's a testament.
65,000 miles and never changed oil in it.
And running from the repo, man.
Yeah. Constantly. It was a constant war. I didn't have a way to get around otherwise, I was going from door to door. I had a really good friend back at home. He's an older gentleman, but he owned a pest control business, and he paid really good. He paid you $200 a day to work for him. And it was a guy that I'd fished with some. And he said, man, you come work with me. I'll pay you $200 a day. And so I started doing that with him for a little bit. In the process, realized that there was a market around that area for like power washing.
Yeah.
And so I went out and my mom and dad loaned me like $700 to go buy a power washer at Lowe's, bought a power washer. And we had this community in Arkansas, just north of Hot Springs. I live in Hot Springs,
Right.
like Hamilton now. We have this community called Hot Springs Village. And it's just a bunch of retired people move in here, a bunch of really nice golf courses, like 10 or 11 lakes. It's full of fish. And they move there and retire. And I just go from door to door all day long.
Hustling.
And knocking on doors. Hey, would you like your porch power washed or your siding or your driveway?
And during this time, are you like, I got to get back on tour? Was that the drive, or was it like, I just need to survive?
Were you even fishing at all during this?
I mean, I was doing a lot of the power washing only to pay the couple bills I had, but to afford to fish in tournament the next weekend.
Wow.
And the good thing was had. And see, when I refer to my friends, I've got a few friends that are kind of around my age, but most of my friends are like in their 60s or older. You know, I'm 34, and I mean, they're like my parents' age. And so they're, you know, pretty well off at that age, you know, and they owned boats and stuff, but they might not have been, you know, amazing fishermen. And they had, you know, when I was, you know, younger, 17 to 23 or 24, you know, we were winning a lot of local tournaments. I was a lot with my partners or with my brother and stuff. So they would want to fish with me because, you know, they'd been fishing tournaments and hadn't really ever done very well. And so it was kind of an in for me to have a boat I could use. They were people I liked and respected. And so I would, you know, my dad didn't have a boat anymore at the time when he retired, and I guess 14 was his last year to fish. He has not owned a boat since that day.
Oh, wow.
And so my brother didn't have a boat anymore because I had quit. He had a Phoenix and he sold it. So I would have to fish people that had boats.
Yeah.
And I had about 3 or 4 different guys I was fishing with. And dude, I literally made it back to this point off that. Hustling around, going from door to door to power wash and winning local tournaments. And it was the first 2 years of them 4 years was really tough.
I bet.
But I met my wife, and we got married on September 17th.
Shout out, she's sitting right over there. Yeah,
we got married on September 17th of 2017.
Yeah, and
you know, then adding her and another little one to my life when I already had 2, and I'm going to support them because I had mine too full time. And it just put a lot of extra stress on me, but a lot more motivation.
That's
and I mean,
crazy,
dude, I was fishing everything I could in the state of Arkansas, and just went on an absolute rampage.
Do a lot of people know that story? There's
a few. I mean,
wow,
you know,
that's I'd never even heard
crazy,
that. But we knew you went absent because I know like Cody Meyer and Justin Lucas, we all grew up in the same era, and they like sung your praises, like because I may have fished a co-angler event maybe against you during the same time, FLW stuff or something maybe. But yeah, I remember Cody saying, "Dude, this guy's a freaking hammer stick." And then I forgot that you just kind of disappeared. Now I know why.
When did you start fishing FLW as a pro again?
2000. I won co-angler of the year in 2011, and that was the first year that they gave something for co-angler of the year. And
which was what?
It was a 519, I believe.
Wow.
It was valued at $45,000. Had a motor and everything. And dude, when I found out that year in 2011 that they were going to give away a fully rigged bass boat to Angler of the Year on a co-angler side, I was like, I'm winning that sucker. And so, I mean, I'll do, and that's another story in itself. But it come down, I won by 1 point.
Wow.
And on the last day, Keith Blaylock, Stetson's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Me and Keith are really good buddies. We talk all the time. Me and Stetson
Arkansas
do too.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I won that boat, and I sold that boat for like $38,700. And that gave me enough money to start fishing professionally. And, you know, it was a good 3 years. I had a good 3 years. I finished right off the bat, second at Table Rock, which was the second tournament of the year for me as a pro. Cashed a check at my first tournament, which was at Hartwell. It wasn't much of one, but I think it's one of the smaller checks, like $4,000 or something. But anyways, had a good, decent first year. Made top 10 at Champlain, top 10 at Detroit River. And
it's amazing how like a lot of successful anglers, whether it's KVD, and he said this on the podcast as well, it's like he had a lot of like lucky breaks, but like, and you hearing like all these lucky breaks, like behind the scenes, you got to work your ass off to like get in position to get lucky. Like there's no such thing as lucky breaks if you're grinding and grinding and grinding. The opportunities just come up.
Yeah.
But when she brought up the hiccup thing, so a couple things here. So like, for one, they're not as bad as they seem. Like, cause I've gone through like 2 hiccups, right? 2 or 3, like pretty bad. And at the time I thought, oh my God, this is the end of the world.
What were your hiccups?
One was we were up in Michigan and it was one of those snagging, you can't hook them outside the mouth deal. I won that tournament. It was a top 50 tournament at the end of the year or whatever. Yeah. And someone reported saying, caught a jerkbait fish that was hooked outside the mouth. When I knew, like, right then and there, it was hooked in the mouth. It went back down, and then, like, the hook came out, and it was in the gill plate.
Yeah.
So, like, they brought me in, and they had, I was already home with the title. There was no title.
It was actually a day before we were supposed to leave to get married. And they called him and said you got, like, an hour to get to a polygraph.
So it was an ex-FBI guy. I had to go to his office in Dallas. He gave me a full interview. I was there like 2.5, 3 hours, full interview, all this and that. Anyways, we passed and did all that. But at the time when everyone was coming down on me, all my people, my peers were like, this guy doesn't deserve this. And this guy, he's bad. And so everything was so just bad. My world was tore up, blah, blah, blah. But it always seems worse than what it is. And then the second one was a Lake Champlain a couple years ago where a fish spit up an alewife, and it landed on the deck, and I ended up putting the alewife back in the fish's mouth, put it in the live well. It ended up spitting it back out, but guys were trying to get me for, you're adding weight to a fish.
You got to explain. He did it for the camera.
Yeah.
He was like joking when he did it.
I mean, just being
totally
silly.
Like
you know how it is. Yeah, exactly.
Like knowing, like he knew, like he wasn't trying to gain an advantage.
And again,
common sense in our world now.
Yeah, but again, it's like it seemed so bad at the time, but really, it's like blew over. And then, like in your case, like here we are months later. I'm sure. I mean, dude, you're as happy as can be. You're fishing tournament, everything's good to go.
Did you go through like a really? Did you go through a dark period when all that was happening?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It was bad. I lost a lot of sleep over it.
Yeah.
But not as dark as those 4 years.
Cheater.
Yeah, right.
It was no, nothing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know my intentions.
Yeah, but people were calling you a cheater and
yeah, I mean it is a sucky situation, especially when people are seeing a 10-second clip, and you're not seeing the 5 minutes that led up to that. That's what sucks about it. On that tournament, I took flack for getting a hook in my finger when I'd already had my boat official walk up to the front deck of the boat and make sure that you couldn't see that fish, that it wasn't a sight fish. Did I know the fish was under there? Absolutely, but you couldn't see it. It was under a dock.
And that's how the rules were. Okay, right.
So it's only deemed a sight fish if you see it in the act of fishing for it.
Right.
Well, this fish is completely under the dock. You can't see it. Not even close. Plus, she was like 4 foot deep. It's shaded. I mean, there was no way to see the fish. And what made it look bad is that I had already lost that fish about 4 casts before. And one of the commentators was like, oh, well, them smallmouth, they'll go right back to the bed. Well, duh, but I can't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no way you can intentionally snap. Anyways, it was just a sucky situation because I already knew that fish didn't have to be hooked inside the mouth, even though she was.
Yeah.
But I already knew that it didn't. I mean, and I've told people this before, like, I would love for that fish to have been hooked outside the mouth. Because then I could have explained that situation, but I knew I didn't have to.
Yeah, right.
So it never even crossed my mind that it was going to be a problem.
And of course, we're talking about the MLF tour event, or BPT tour event on Cayuga. And there was like a lot of stuff going around at that time or whatever. But you guys had like a pre-tournament briefing on all of that, right? Fennel, what's his name? Daniel Fennel kind of went over that. And I think the bad look was like, guys like Talk was, it wasn't clear to some guys. And ultimately, it's the angler's responsibility to know what the rules are, whether Daniel covers it or not. It's up to us to know.
Did you feel, a lot of people say you were just a sacrificial lamb or limb. I said lamb, huh? I don't know.
That's what it is, isn't it?
Is
sacrificial
it? I don't know.
Lamb.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, the scapegoat. Yeah. Did you feel that way at the time?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any. I'm not gonna say I don't have any hard feelings. Obviously, there's gonna be hard feelings. Anything that involves you. I don't know. No, not really. I've never actually felt like it. My situation was different than everybody else's.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a deal. Like I feel like they could DQ me, and if they DQ'd anybody else, they would have to DQ 10 other guys.
Ah.
And that's the only thing.
Because what you did was separate from what the accusations of the other guys were.
My incident was completely different. I was the only one that was targeted for something like that.
For
Yeah,
the unhooking of fish.
Yeah, they said I
Or
unhooked
whatever.
the fish outside the boat, but I got a hook in my finger. And it was just one of them deals. Like it was easier to take down me than try to take down.
I
him.
completely agree with. I mean, I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
believe that, and I don't know all the details. I just knew kind of what was going on,
Yeah.
and we were tuned in the next day and watching and everything.
When they polygraphed all of y'all, right?
Mhm.
You and all the guys. There were so many rumors flying around at the time about like with the polygraph that they kind of like guided you guys, that
Yeah.
they said like, just answer the questions truthfully. Even if you did
Yeah.
something that was illegal, just answer them truthfully. And if you pass the polygraph, that's what we're going to say. You passed it. Did you?
Yeah.
Was that true?
I was never told that.
Okay.
I was never told that.
Okay. Did, when I assume you felt the polygraph? You don't know?
I've never seen the results.
Mhm.
Really?
It was
That's
just
crazy.
an interview in Poly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Is there any way to appeal, like when they come out with a rule? Like, is there any like legitimate way? Because we talk about that on our side, that it seems like we say like you should have like a group of anglers like that are in the same position or understand your position that you should be able to appeal to and like really talk through it. Did you have that opportunity? Or
There was an opportunity to appeal the ruling to fight my case, and they gave me they let me state my case.
Sure.
They let me use my evidence,
Mhm.
right?
and I mean it was all solid. I mean, my boat officials all stood up for me. One of them even made a public statement about it.
Wow.
And
When you say they, is this the tournament director, Mr. Fennell, or is it? I mean, is it Boyd Duckett? I mean, is it? They're just
a group.
yeah.
If you can't talk about it,
Yeah,
you can just tell us.
No, I was confronted about the issue at the very last day.
The last day.
Before I went up on the stage after I finished
I got
second,
you.
and Daniel had come up to me and asked me about it. It had been brought to his attention, and I told him right then and there, I said, if this is going to be an issue in the future, I said, take that fish away. Because we keep up with everything.
Yeah,
Sure.
you know,
I was
you could
very
just
upset about it.
Yeah.
with you guys, you could just cross it out because you know.
Exactly. I didn't need that
Need it.
fish
Right.
to finish second.
Oof. Yeah.
And
And you knew that.
yeah, and it wouldn't have mattered if I did. I don't want that fly.
Yeah.
I said, give me 4.
Right.
I mean, DQ me from today. I don't want this to be an issue. It's still going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem. I explained it. I mean, it was checked with my boat official. Everything was cleared. And it wasn't until 3 weeks later that it became a problem.
Yeah.
And it was because, I feel like mainly because it all blasted over social media.
Pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Of everything.
Yeah.
even though it was cleared and everything was deemed okay, that nothing had been done wrong,
Yeah.
it still become a problem.
Wow.
And so
That crazy.
it's one of them deals like, I've had so many people like, oh, you got to fight it and this. And that. Dude, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to do
Are
that.
you afraid if you fight it that you won't get to fish for the league anymore? Like, you afraid of those ramifications of it?
I can't afford to miss any tournaments.
Yeah.
That there's, it's different for me maybe than it is some people. Like I've got babies that are depending on me to make a check.
Yeah.
If it was that I couldn't fish and something went on for a year or two,
It would end your livelihood.
yeah, and
Yeah.
obviously sponsors would pull out because you're not fishing. So what's the point in us
Yep.
sponsoring this guy?
Right.
I just feel like it's a bad look.
Yeah.
It's one of them deals that, and others say, well, it's going to be a bad look no matter what. But at the end of the day, when I lay down at night, I know the
Yeah.
truth, 100%,
Yeah.
and I know the people in my boat.
And your sponsors
Do you-
are in your corner.
Yep,
Up
I
and
haven't
down.
had any issue.
Why didn't they just DQ you for the day? Like, why was it? Did they give a reasoning? Because that feels like precedence. I don't know what precedence is on y'all's side,
Yeah.
but that seems pretty intense. If it was just one infraction, like one day that there was an infraction.
I I don't know.
Who
I
knows?
asked that
Yeah.
question.
Right.
I'm sure they
Except
relooked.
because
Yeah.
of issues that had happened before.
I'm sure they looked at that. We talked with
Yep.
Kevin. KVD obviously was his final year and his last few tournaments and stuff. But yeah, he was saying they're looking into all that and redoing all that. To protect guys like you.
Yeah.
When
Look,
stuff goes
man,
down.
It has never been my intention to screw somebody over by an ounce.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want to win a tournament
Right.
because you had a dead fish.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
if you still had more weight than me, you had more weight than me.
Right.
I don't want to cut corners to beat
Right.
somebody. I want to beat you outright.
Yeah.
So it's never been my intent to try and do something to cheat, and that was the part that crushed me the most. You can ask any tournament director that's ever dealt with me. I call them for everything. They get sick of me. Like if I'm
Little
out
things.
fishing and I have to go to the bathroom, pull up on the bank, I'm calling
Let
before
'em
I get out
know.
of that boat.
Yeah.
Because my luck, somebody be like, "Oh, I saw Sheffield get out of the boat, went up there and took
Dude,
20
in this
pounds out
day
of
and
the
age,
basket."
And
there
they'll do
are
it.
those people.
They'll call.
So
Yeah.
I call.
Yeah.
If I catch fish in an area that I think might be questionable in practice, I'll take pictures of it everywhere
Confirm,
I can.
yeah.
I send it to them and make sure I can fish in that area.
No, it's a good way to do it.
I've never been protested. I've never been DQ before. I've never broke a rule to my knowledge, ever.
Wow.
I'm sure I will throw no weights on too fast.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But
we
I
all
mean,
have-
who has
Yeah,
it?
bridge or
You
an
know,
island. Yeah.
but that's not my intent to do anything like
Right.
that. And if it ever got to a point where I felt like I needed to do something like that, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point?
So going forward, right? You've been through this situation, and I would assume, like in it, you know what you did, so you kind of want to fight it. So there's that struggle there
Yep.
of proving your innocence because you
Yep.
know your record's clean, and then you have all this other stuff going on with other people, and they
Yeah.
kind of get away with what they do or whatever you want to say. Like, how going forward can there be changes that protect an angler in that situation? Do you feel like, okay, these things were done wrong and these are the changes that need to be made? Because it just seems really weird that, because we all saw everything else. I didn't even notice what you did, but I noticed the
Yeah.
other things
Yeah.
because I was watching the whole week.
Yeah.
And it was really confusing at how you could get your whole day DQ'd, but those guys, they could find a way to, it's like, it's the rule. We got to fix the rule. It's fine. Do you
Yeah.
feel like there needs to be protections for anglers in those scenarios?
I mean, yeah, probably. That's another thing that a lot of people had gotten out of context. I feel like when they had the BPT at St. Lawrence, a lot of them guys were catching
The same
10
thing.
small.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Racking up 150 pounds in
Yeah.
a day or 100, whatever. And that rule was supposedly created to do that. I found that out after the turn, after. Now, I knew that the rule was in place that you couldn't visually sight fish the same fish twice.
Mm-hmm.
But we were told that you could catch it multiple times. You could just only visibly catch
Like
it
blind
once.
casting or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't prove.
And what if it pairs up? I mean, what if it happens to pair up with another
Exactly.
dude, right? I mean, it's
Exactly.
2023. Maybe there's two dudes up there. You catch.
Yeah.
You got
Oh,
it.
dang.
I got it. Yeah.
We're gonna get
I was
the
thinking
answer.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Slow things
No, yeah.
Anyway, so I'm not going to say I don't go back and watch live footage very often. I'll go back and watch clips of me catching fish or
Mhm.
something, especially if I'm driving home from a tournament, I'm about to fall asleep or something, and I don't pull over. I'll turn live on and watch it, whatever, because it keeps me awake. But I've seen, because that week was such a big deal, I've seen a lot of the clips on social media and things like that. I'm not going to say that there wasn't a guy or two that was maybe illegally catching one twice,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
they hadn't seen it at some
Heavily
point. Or
in the
not.
gray area.
But most of that was going on was because we were told we could. I mean, I never caught the same fish twice, day one or day two of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But in the knockout round, I caught one of the same ones twice.
Yep.
And in the championship round, I caught one twice. And I already knew we could, but before I did it, I asked my boat official, I said, can I come back and catch this fish here in an hour in the next period? I mean, you catch it multiple times in
Sure.
a day period if you want,
Sure.
I guess. But I was going to, give her an hour break. It was like 30 minutes left at the end of the second period, and I was going to come back and catch her again in the third period. It was a 5-12, and she was a little deeper. She was like 6-7 foot of water.
Yep.
Most of them smallmouth on Cayuga were spawning so shallow, it would have been really hard not to see them.
Uh-huh.
Even if you went back to catch them, try to blind cast them, they were so shallow, it'd been hard to
Right.
not have seen them.
Okay.
And me knowing that, like, I'm like, there's no way I could come back and catch this one again. There's no way I can catch this one again. So I'd only found 2 fish that were big enough that I thought I could catch a second time without somehow seeing
them per the rules. Right.
I had the one under the dock where I took in my finger, and I had that one
deeper.
But that was on the championship day that I'd found the one out deeper that wasn't around anything. It's kind of in a little grass hole.
Gotcha.
Because Cayuga had some grass, it was 4 or 5 foot tall, and she was kind of in a hole, so you couldn't see she was shaded in, and she was a little deeper. So after I found her the first time, I just found her on the championship day. I'm looking for new ones. I'm trying to find one of them Venus 6-pounders.
Yeah.
I hadn't found one, and I'm looking. I see this big one down there. I pitch over on her. I catch her. She weighs 5'12". I'm like, dang, dude. And right then I was like, dude, this is one that I could come back and catch again without seeing it. And I fishing for it. So I told my boat fisher after I caught her, immediately after, I said, I want to come back and catch this fish in the third period. I said, can I do that? And he said, yes.
He said yes.
He said, you can only do it once visibly.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I made him call the tournament director right there and ask him. He said, you can only catch it one time visibly. After that, you can catch it again, but you cannot see it in the side of fishing pole.
So he gave you the green light.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the only reason that I'm not saying that's the only reason guys did it, but what I'm saying is that is how I am.
It was allowed.
I am going to call and ask before I do anything.
Right.
Even if I know it's not against the rules and I know it's legal to do, if it might potentially be in the gray area, I want to call to make sure. Yeah. And even though I'd already been given the green light by my boat official, I still want to know from the tournament director that makes the rules at the end of the day or enforces rules that I can. And so I made sure that we called right there on the boat and asked, and he said, yes, you can only catch it once looking at it. But after that, you can catch it again as long as you don't see it in the act of fishing for it.
Sure.
So I marked that fish up on a willow tree. I come back about 45 minutes to an hour later after the break. I stop about, probably 20 yards short of her or whatever, because she was in a grass hole, so you couldn't get too far away, or your line be in the grass too much. So I had my boat official walk up there. I said, right here's where I'm going to sit. And I said, right up there is where I'm going to throw. I said, can you see this fish? And he stood there and he looked. No, I can't see. He said, no, I can't see her at all. He said, you're good. And I knew you couldn't see her. I couldn't see her.
Yeah.
And it took me about 4 casts to get the right cast, because I was far enough away from you couldn't see exactly where the hole was, but I had her kind of marked out in front of that willow tree. And it took me about 4 or 5 casts finally I threw out there. And I knew once I got the bait in there, because heck, she bit the first dang time.
Yeah.
I threw at her the first time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, threw out there, shake it, tighten up.
Yeah. Old
and
school
so
fishing,
that was one I'd caught twice. And the one where I got took in my finger, I'd caught her twice. So
that when you said, everyone saw a 20-second clip, or heard a 20-second clip, 5-second clip, and they didn't see the 10 minutes leading up to it. That's the explanation right there.
Mm-hmm.
But would MLF have that footage? Did you have a camera in your boat at that time or no?
Yeah, I had a camera in my boat for every fish catch I had.
So they would be able.
But the very first 5 of the tournament, I didn't.
Yeah.
The very first 5 I caught weighed like 23, and I was in second or third. That was my first qualifying day. I was in second or third, and then they put a camera on my boat, and there wasn't another fish catch the rest of the of the day. Or the rest of the week, I didn't have a camera on my boat.
You would think
and the official vouch for you, too, during the interview.
Think that that's everything you need to prove your story, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
so you were the
crazy.
sacrificial lamb goat.
No, dude, I'm not going to say that.
Yeah. No.
I'm not going to say that.
I can say that. That's my opinion, yeah.
Your case is different. I get what you're saying. Your case was completely different than what the other 10 guys or whatever. It's crazy that with all that evidence that you feel like your back is against the wall and you just have to take it because you got to make a living, and so you have to take the ding on your name and move on. That's my concern.
Like I said, it's not as bad as you think it is. Like everyone's
I
moved
got
on.
DQ'd ultimately over a failed polygraph.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That you've never seen the results of, though.
And you finished second in that tournament, which would have paid how much?
Oh, wow.
Bro. Who'd that go to?
It went back. They
take it back and move it.
Oh, the guys, yeah.
So I had always heard, and this is rumors. I'm queen of the rumor mill, but that in the past that dinged polygraphs over there just ended in a fine. You got a fine. It was all kept hush hush. Is that what you had heard? Previously.
Yeah. That's what I'd heard.
Yeah.
I think with a new organization like that, everyone's been around, but like they're trying to establish themselves. They've had some challenges. Like they want as much swept underneath the rug as possible. Maybe that's not the right terminology, but they just want to, I mean, they don't need any negative light whatsoever.
One of the funny, well, but if he has evidence,
Sure.
like one of the funniest things ever was the Sprague thing. I call it funny because I heard that when he stood up, he said, yeah, I did this, but y'all all do it too, and so that's my question, if there was a precedent set in the past where they handled things different, like why was yours handled, and is that the way it's going to be handled going forward? And I know you can't speak for that, but
I just feel like the punishment, I mean, if there was guys that, thought that I did do that.
Right.
And I guess they just feel like punishment needs to be the max.
Yeah.
On a situation like that. It's all I can figure.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have anything bad to say. Look, man, it was a sucky situation.
Yeah. You survived it.
The terrible rule. It sucky the way
it
it was covered. Yeah. Yeah.
But so many people were so upset for guys catching the same fish twice. And I'm like, look, man, the fish is going right back. You could have caught her 30 times if you had wanted. I mean, at least they're going back. It's not as bad as somebody catching a bed fish and then
spewing eggs everywhere.
For 7 hours
I
and
agree.
taking it 30 miles away.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You might agree, but I think like as a woman, and if I was pregnant, if you were screwing with me, I'd be pretty pissed off. I'd be pretty stressed. That's the way I look at it, from that standpoint. But it is interesting that you showed your marshal or whatever y'all call them. You really tried to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. And it was they had a camera there. So that's to me a little scary of, do anglers have rights? Do they have a way to prove their innocence, or is it, whatever the organization wants to do is what they're going to do? I'm
sure they'll look at it. And Kevin told us, they're looking at that. They'll probably have new rules for next year and from what we're hearing, a completely different structure from here on out. We'll see. Like as we're sitting here for the WOMBASS US Open, we're hearing there'll be some major changes and everything. And
I got a WOMBASS question because I wanted to ask it earlier. Was last year your first time to fish the US Open?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
What do you just get an itch to come out here?
So I started seeing the U.S. Open in about 2020, really start on social media, like when guys would fish it.
Yeah.
And you'd see it advertised.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good prize package.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so surprised more people, at least from the Ozarks through Texas, don't come because it's not that far of a drive with what y'all are used to.
Yep.
And you're talking about $100,000 a boat,
So I've never been west of Tulsa, Oklahoma in my entire life. I've been everywhere north of Arkansas, everywhere east and south.
Right.
Which ain't really anywhere to go south. Texas or Louisiana, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So I've been everywhere east. I've always wanted to come west. We've never seen the Grand Canyons. That was something me and my wife wanted to do.
It's beautiful out here.
I won the title in August last year at $200,000. So
that's right.
Money was not, any kind of a stress then. We wanted to come to Vegas. It was just the perfect opportunity.
Right.
And then they moved it from me to Mojave. And it was just a bug that had kind of got put in my ear after I won the title. Somebody had mentioned something about like, hey, you can go fish US Open. And I was like, yeah. I was like, man, I've always wanted to fish that thing. Like,
and you were on a roll.
Bassmaster Classic of the West.
Yeah.
And then I saw I moved to Mojave, and they're like, dude, that's like big smallmouth. You ought to go fish it. So I got on YouTube, and I watched a couple YouTube videos in Mojave, and I was like, dude, that place looks fun. And so I was like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And
so
you were
I
on a
called
roll.
Billy, and I was like, hey, man, I want to come fish this US. Well, I called Roy Hawk first.
Yeah.
And I asked him some questions about it.
Yeah.
And then I signed up, and off we went. I didn't know what to expect.
I'm guessing Roy Hawk didn't say, dude, come fish it. You're going to crush them live scoping. I'm guessing because whenever he wins out here, it's all cranking, pre-spawn, trapping, not looking.
He told me, he was like, man, it's a great lake. It's full of smallmouth and it's a fun fishery and stuff like that. So I rolled up here excited to go, man. I was ready to go.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Trait, what else you got? You've handled yourself really, really well.
I really enjoyed this. I just I've always tell people like, the more transparent you are in 23,
Yep.
the better chance you got. Like, people hated me for so long, and the more I just like, they got to know me and I spoke out
Yeah.
and was just myself, they gave me a chance, you
Yeah.
know, and hearing, I didn't know what to think about you. I didn't know you at all. I didn't
Yep.
know anyone who knew you, but hearing you try to do it the right way,
Yeah.
you know, because that's my concern is I feel like the anglers don't have that much protection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then there are favorites too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I feel like when anglers don't have protection and then organizations favor other ones,
Mhm.
like there's a real bad situation. Like we need to find, and I know you'll have the AA or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but we need to have like real representation where we can fight things like that, like legitimately fight. Cause it's hard when it's a privately owned company, you know, and
Yeah.
and, you know, good for you of saying like, you know, whatever, I'm going to take it, move on. But also it kind of sucks, you know, and it's scary to think that could happen to any angler, and you just have to take it because that's
Yeah.
the way it's set up.
Well, yeah. And I don't want people thinking I'm taking it because I'm guilty. I'm taking it because there's a bigger
Picture.
than people can see. I mean, I got 3 kids. I got
Yeah,
a wife.
man.
I mean, it's my only way to make
Absolutely.
money. I don't want to go back to knocking on doors
Absolutely.
Right.
to power wash.
Yeah.
And I can survive it. $45,000 isn't going to make me. It's not going to break me.
Right.
I feel like I've proved myself enough over the last 12 years fishing, never having a strike against me,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that people would, you know, of course, you know, 90% of the people that's going to dog you don't know you.
Right.
That's why locally I had such a supportive group
Yeah.
back at home when this stuff got online, is because they knew they knew what I went through.
Yeah.
Guys, a lot of people I'd spent days in the boat with because it's the only way I go fishing. I mean, I started fishing with people those 4 years I took off that I would have never fished with before because I didn't want to show them something.
Sure.
Right.
You know, because we were winning
Yeah.
tournaments.
Sure.
But it got to the point where I wanted to fish more than I cared to show them something.
Right.
So I was going to go.
Right.
And if I had a chance to hop in a boat, you know, I was going to go fishing with them. And so there was people back at home, even when I was, you know, younger, you know, in my mid 20s or early 20s and was winning a lot of tournaments, like, man, that guy, he just win, you know, he's 20 years younger than me, beat me all the time, you know. And then I got to fish with them and they're like, dang, dude, you're really catching them,
Yeah.
you know. And it was, so I gained a lot of respect from people back at home like that. And it was good to see that group. And those are the group of people I didn't want to disappoint
Right.
at the end of the day.
Yeah. The people
You're
that
going to
knew
have the
you.
haters no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be somebody looking to break you down.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because there's a few guys that was involved in that BPT stuff that I know personally, and I know their intentions,
Yeah.
and I know that they might not have got DQ'd or no fines or whatever. But it's the fact that I know their intentions too, and I know that they got caught up in something or it was portrayed to be a certain way when that's not the way it was on our end.
Mhm.
I mean, we there was guys that were not intentionally breaking the rules.
Why didn't the organization come out and say that though? Like really tell the public, you know what? We screwed up. We told these guys they could do this, you know.
That's
Oh.
a question for Gary Klein, and I reached out to him this morning, and I heard crickets. So
Yeah.
I just, hey, look, I have nothing bad to say about MLF.
Yeah.
Nothing bad to say about BAS. I think they're a great organization trying to
Right.
do their best
absolutely.
to provide the best format, the best tournament trails they can for the
That's heavy.
fishermen.
That's a big responsibility.
Yeah. You know, to say there might be a bad apple here and there, of course,
Sure.
but for the most part, man, the people involved with MLF that I've, you know, and that's the only organization I've ever been involved with, so I can't speak for basketball. I'm sure they're excellent as well. But most of the people involved in these organizations are really good people.
Right.
I mean, they really are. They want the best for the anglers. They want the best for themselves. And I respect that. But at the end of the day, those people that are really good or whatever might not have the final say.
Yeah.
Right.
And not saying that the people that have the final say aren't good too. I'm just saying sometimes I
Right.
think there's decisions that have to be made to, you know, save face for everybody. Maybe.
Collectively, sure. Yeah.
So for,
With-
you know, say,
with,
but
with that, with with talks of rules changes, format changes, and this and that. So I don't know how it was on the MLF side. I don't know how involved you are on the MLF side with talks of rule changes and things like that. But I can tell you on the bass side, there has been an absolute uproar these last few tournaments of it's so boring to watch. It's this and that. This guy's too many transducers. Blah blah blah. In your opinion, is this gripe of forward-facing sonar the appropriate gripe that we should be, in an uproar about? Or is that just something that we shouldn't even be thinking about that? Like, we need to be, collectively talking and trying to change this other thing. Like, what's your opinion? Are we wasting our time griping about forward-facing sonar?
Man, my deal about forward-facing sonar is like, look, I absolutely love catching them using it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like a top water bite on steroids. I see the bite coming.
Yeah.
I enjoy catching fish using that. I don't care if they take it out or they leave it. I feel like we've already opened that can of worms. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in 10 years, we're going to look back and be like, man, forward-facing sonar was junk.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like we're wasting our time arguing about it. I feel like the argument needs to be, the fans, they only get to see what's put on TV, and that's forward-facing sonar and how we're catching them. I feel as an angler, we need to start putting our concentration more on payouts and how we can involve the fans in the sporting more. Like, I wish we had weigh-ins still on the MLF side. Because I enjoy. I mean, we got people at the when we're loading up and stuff, and then on the final day for make top 10. But I miss getting to sign hats and take your picture with little kids and stuff. I mean, I enjoyed that at weigh-ins.
Yeah,
right.
And I feel like we need to, on our side, we need to incorporate the fans back in on more of a regular basis in turn, not just one day.
Yep.
But maybe, the payouts and things like that is where we really need to start focusing our attention. I mean, my dad won $100,000 when he won Okeechobee in '88. Guess how much you win now when you win a tournament?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we say this on every podcast, but
That's changed.
It's bad. $100,000 doesn't get you very far in fishing these days.
It is.
No,
it's
my
crazy.
200,000 man was going on a heartbeat. Like, we paid for her Suburban outright, but and it's one of them deals. Like, I mean, you give the IRS their part.
Oh yeah,
and it's like next
it's
thing
gone.
you know, dude, you're down to like
it's gone, and then you're right back at work trying to win the next tournament.
Yeah.
It's a crazy cycle. I got to do a register, so I'm gonna give you one more question, and I got one more
coming off the payouts. So payouts aren't that good. There's rumors that there are some payout cuts even coming, which is a very scary situation. Do you think that because of the payout situation that we're creating an environment that are pushing guys to do things they'd never do before? Or do you think that it's better than we think?
No, I'm not saying I think the payouts are great. I think top 10 payouts are pretty good. Like on the BPT side. I mean, the top 10 is pretty stout, but after that, it's 10 grand through 40, and then it's basically nothing from there on.
Your butt.
But the deal is, I think the semi-level, these AAA event like a Toyota Series or BFL, that's where you will see people, maybe even Bass Opens, that are trying to really live in a gray area or bend the rules and break. And I just feel like when you get to the top of the level, most of them guys, I'm not saying that financially you're more set.
Right.
Necessarily, but most guys I feel like that are fishing professionally, truly fishing professionally, are getting some money from sponsors, and life is a little easier. I just don't really feel like there's a lot of guys
that are pushing it.
No, I mean, I'm not saying bending the rules is breaking the rules. I mean, if it's either against the rules or it's not.
Yeah, black or white, sure.
Period. I mean, I don't believe in a gray area and bending the rules. I don't ever want to take a chance of getting DQ'd, so I don't even want to live in what they call the gray area.
Right.
But at the end of the day,
it's either
you're
legal
breaking the
or
rule or
it's
you're
not.
not.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? But I don't. I really don't, man. I really feel like most of the guys that are fishing professionally just want to be fishing professionally. Like, I truly feel blessed. I'm thankful and grateful that I get to do this. I truly wake up in the mornings and I'm excited to go fishing, unless I'm not catching them. And I'm like, gosh, today's going to be work, but for the most part, I truly enjoy doing what I do. I don't want to risk not getting to do this. And there's too much that depends on it.
Right.
That's awesome.
I don't feel like there's a lot of guys trying to get away with stuff to make an extra buck. I mean,
that's good.
Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But I don't see it, truly. I really don't. I feel like on
our side, at least, like that no info rule gets pushed.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of it, especially when guys were about to get kicked off and stuff like that. I feel like that's where they they might dabble.
Some guys get desperate. They do.
If
Absolutely.
there is rule breaking, that's where it happens.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
information.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff. All right. Well, we always like to wrap up these podcasts with, hey, look, you've been through a lot, dude. How old are you? 34?
34. Yeah.
Wow. Like you are speaking like a old school Ron Shuffield. Like you've got a lot of life experience at 34 years old. Like there's a lot of things I learned about you today that I had no clue about. And obviously, and I forgot about that title win you had last year as well. So definitely very successful. You've covered a lot of miles. You've fished north, south, east, and west. What advice can you give the viewers, whether it's dad advice, whether it's fishing advice? Give us some life advice as we part ways here.
Whew. Life advice.
That you've learned this year.
Oh, I've learned this year.
Mm-hmm.
Man, for me, I mean, truly, and it's what has kept me going. It's what's got me to where I'm at, but just keeping a strong faith in God and believing that He has got your best interest, no matter what, no matter what the devil throws at you. I mean, it's really, I can go back and look over the last 15 years in my life and see how I got to points where things were getting good. And then the devil throws something at you. I mean, it was just the other day. I mean, literally right before we left to come to this event, we really started reading the Bible with our kids back at home.
Good.
And I literally told my wife, I said, something's going to happen on the way to U.S. Open because we're starting to do this. It's like when you start really, truly trying to do things correct, the devil's going to try and get you down. Thing truck breaks down on the way.
Yeah.
And now here I am pulling my boat around with you all. So it's like it just puts you,
Right.
it's just a way to try and
Test
drag you back down, man. But I just try and stay focused. I try and stay positive as much as I can. I mean, I can be a pretty negative person because it's like when it starts to rain on me, it starts trying to pour.
Yeah.
And, but man, like I said, like I told you earlier, I'm just thankful I get to fish. I enjoy every day that I get to do this. You know, when I first did this, I really took it for granted. And that was one mistake I learned over from now to back when I was doing it professionally. When I had to go through that 4 years of what I went through, that was the one thing I learned the most out of it is that I took fishing for granted those first 7 to 8 years. And that is something I will never do again.
Wow.
And I'm just glad that I was able to get back to where I'm at now. And hopefully I'm out here till I'm 7 years old, man. I hope I'm Rick Klein just still whacking around on them out there, you know, when I'm 72 years old. So,
well, you got a heck of a start, man. We, like I said, we're looking forward to seeing how you do here again this week. With a second place finish last year. But Spencer, really appreciate you coming out, dude.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank
We
you.
learned a lot
you.
from you. And maybe when we head back east, we'll get you on the podcast again.
Yeah.
So thank you. And thank you to your
Thank
wife
y'all
for
for
hanging
having
out
me.
with us. Appreciate it. We out.
Guys.